All right, greetings everyone. I'm James Childers, the town manager for the Town of Flower Mound, and I'm joined by.
John Zagorski, your Chief Financial Officer.
And we're here to walk you through our Bond 2025 presentation. We wanted to extend an opportunity for those of you that are unable to attend our public meetings that we're going to have during the month of April. We wanted to still have you provide you an opportunity to walk through and hear factual information from us in regards to the bond. Our focus and goal with this presentation is to inform you to the best of our ability so you can make an informed decision at the ballot on May 3rd. On slide number 1, you'll see an agenda of what all we're going to get into in this presentation. And I'll pause for a second so you can read that. Proposition A is $82 million, and it contains projects that are tied to our trail systems, parks and sports field, as well as an expansion and renovation of the Community Activity Center. Proposition B is $30 million, and these are comprised of street projects that we're looking to fund street improvements over the next 5 years. So the history of bond program in the town of Flower Mound is fairly limited. The last bond program that we held and passed was in 2002. And that was where the funding for the construction of the Community Activity Center and several athletic fields was placed. Since then, the town has been in a position where we use cash to fund capital projects and relying on a variety of other funds to also take care of these projects. And these include sales tax funds, county bond monies, federal state grants, and the like. The one thing I will point out here is that we did have a proposition a few years back tied to a tennis center. So there might be some of you that say, hey, I remember that there was some type of bond referendum out there, and you're absolutely correct, but that's not a bond program in the truest sense. That was a one-off that the council at that time decided to put on the ballot to get the opinions of voters. But when we're talking bond program, we're talking about items that have several different layers to them, several different items over different departments and the like. And so, again, it's been about 23 years since our last bond program. So slide number 5, we're showing our population as it's grown over the years, over the last, looks like 45 years or so, of both our population and our road miles. And you'll notice something that almost line for line proportionally as our population increased, the number of our road miles have increased in the town of Flower Mound. One thing I want to point on is to look at the roads that were built in the 1990s as well as the early 2000s. And on the far right of your screen, you'll see that the average lifespan of a street is around 30 years. And that's a key indicator for the why we're looking, is especially on the street project side of doing a bond program to address our streets. We have many roads that were put in the 90s and the early 2000s that are coming at the end of their useful life. And so that's a driver as to what are some of the reasons why we are looking to bring a bond program before you. And so I'm going to turn over to John, and he's going to talk about some legislative changes that were put into place that are also driving us to look to do a bond program in 2025.
Thank you, James. And so this bond program is much larger than a lot of the debt issuances we have done over the past couple of years. So the scale of these upcoming projects is more than the town can fund with cash reserves. Particularly since 2019, Senate Bill 2 passed, limiting Texas towns and cities to a 3.5% annual revenue cap on operation side of the tax rate. The town of Flower Mound is adopting a new financial strategy to shift dedicated sales tax funds to pay for operations and maintenance costs while financing capital projects through debt. This next slide will actually walk you through some visualizations to help you better understand this. And so since the passage of Senate Bill 2, you can see there by bullet number 1, capped M&O property tax revenue at 3.5%. This pushed our operating costs out to our dedicated sales tax funds. And so we're cycling around the circle, and you can see that our dedicated sales tax funds are needed to basically fund our operations, and if we did not do that, we'd have to decrease the total scope of operations. And so this is going to push our capital items, which were traditionally funded by those sales tax dollars, out into our INS side. So you can see it shifting around the circle once more. The town's cash will be primarily dedicated to the maintenance and operation, leaving very little room for capital items. Thus, we will fund capital projects through the debt and INS rate. This next slide kind of shows you what we're hoping to accomplish with those dollars. So as we're capped in the general funds, maintenance operations pushed over to those dedicated sales tax funds. And we're also looking to expand our maintenance activities across the town, particularly with our street maintenance sales tax and also our park for B funds and maintaining our parks and funding that through our dedicated sales tax. This in turn will push capital projects and equipment replacement out to our debt and INS side. So this is just another visualization to help you kind of understand how we're moving.
So going back to the process, the town council established the Blue Ribbon Bond Committee in the summer of 2024. And the role of the Blue Ribbon Bond Committee is to vet projects that staff bring forward to make sure they're ultimately going to make a recommendation to the town council. And on slide number 9, you can see the time frame that's associated with the Blue Ribbon Bond Committee, where we had an orientation through August and October. And what was involved in that orientation is that staff presented various projects and concepts to the bond committee where they asked questions and vetted it. And then from there in October of 2024 through December, there were public engagement opportunities where town staff, in addition to the Blue Ribbon Bond Committee, had public settings across various locations in the town where the public can come in, ask questions, give their thoughts, share what they would be willing to support in an election, and provided some good data. And then in December, the Blue Ribbon Bond Committee deliberated that information that they got from the public engagement process. And also in that same month of December, they made a recommendation to the town council. So in February of this year, the town council made a recommendation to place this bond program on a ballot for May 3rd of this year. So let's go a little bit more depth in propositions A and B, and we'll start with proposition A, which is again $82 million for parks, trails, and recreation. One of the first projects contemplated in Proposition A is a multi-sports field conversion project, and that's located at our Chin Chapel Soccer Complex, obviously off of Chin Chapel Road. And the goal of this particular project is to convert a grass soccer field to a synthetic turf surface that can be used by various sports. And the basic premise of this is that a synthetic turf surface can take a lot more wear and tear than your traditional grass surface. And so we can accommodate more sports on that space. And so in addition to soccer, you have other flat field sports that can make use of this space, including football and lacrosse. And so it again takes that grass surface, turns it into a synthetic turf surface that allows more use, and under lit fields, we can accommodate more and more sporting events. Next up, you have the Canyon Falls Trailhead and connectors. And the Town of Flower Mound secured some property at the corner of Canyon Falls Road and Denton Creek Boulevard. And that is where our future fire station, our permanent fire station 6 is going to be located. We also had some opportunity with the 6 or so acres to place some amenities out on our western side of town that serves the Canyon Falls neighborhood as well as the Trailwood neighborhood. And this project includes a trailhead with connections to trails in both Canyon Falls. And there's a future Brookview development that's going to be on the acreage just south of this location that this will serve also. In addition to that, ultimately, as time passes, you're going to have more and more residents coming out there at the Monarch development as well as the First Ranch development. So in addition to a trailhead there, we're also contemplating a unique amenity, which is a 24-hour self-service library center. And for our residents out west, they are a ways away from our single library location, more into central Flower Mound. And this library self-service area provides an opportunity for our residents on our western side to be able to use library services out there. And this self-service center is an ability where you can hold and request books and have them brought there. And you can also real time check out books and other items from the library there. So obviously, in the future, as this area develops, we want to develop a full branch library out there. But the self-service center provides library amenities that are much needed to our western side. And in addition to, people also don't realize that our library here in Flower Mound is the library that's used by residents in North Lake and Argyle and other adjacent smaller communities that aren't served by a public library. So they will be able to utilize this too. So we have an opportunity to have this unique amenity there along with the trailhead. And we're going to put some additional amenities out there, such as seating and benches, where folks can use this space for an outdoor reading oasis. Next up, you have Twin Coast Park, and this is a space that we have that has some primitive camping sites, RV sites, and cabin sites off of Grapevine Lake. And what this item does is it contemplates funding phase 2 of Twin Coast Park. And on slide number 14, you see some renderings of the work that's going to be done out there. In particular, you'll notice a structure, and that'll serve as an indoor rental space to complement the amenities that we currently have out there. Here on slide 15, if you're not familiar with the space, it gives you an overhead view of the layout of the space and some of the amenities that are out there right now. Next up is Leonard and Helen Johns Community Park. This is a 38-acre park that's located off Timber Creek Road. For this project, it includes a restroom facilities, additional tennis courts, because the majority of the tennis courts that we have in our park system is located in Leonard and Helen Johns Park. It will provide additional tennis courts, shade pavilions, playground, improved parking, enhanced landscaping, trees, and new site amenities. Next up, you have Prairie Trail Park. This contemplates a master plan, design, and construction of this 4.25 acre neighborhood park. With this park, it does get a lot of usage. It's going to provide some improvements such as a loop trail, picnic pavilion, landscaping, exercise equipment, play structures, and also to further develop an open area that we want to start using for youth team practice space, which is a premium in our park system. And so these improvements will not only assist in just putting more amenities out there, but further highlight this as a space for our youth soccer, baseball, t-ball teams and the like can use for practice space. Last but certainly not least, we have improvements to our trail system. And on here, you see a slide from our trails master plan that shows all the network of trails that are out there. And with this particular project, we're looking, and on your bottom left-hand side, you can see some of the specific sections that we're contemplating funding with this particular bond. And our council gave direction of emphasizing trail connectivity. How do we create more connectivity and longer loops so folks can stay on trail for longer, with an emphasis of identifying and further improving off-street trail sections, meaning that we want to put an emphasis on those trail sections that get you off of these major thoroughfares, get you into wooded areas where you can see more of nature. And so again, these projects over on your bottom left-hand side, contemplate doing that, creating that connectivity, but also emphasizing that off-street, that more rustic trail sections. And I said last but not least earlier, but really the end piece is renovation and expansion to the Community Activities Center. And that is going to be the primary driver for the price tag that you see of $82 million. This is for design and construction of renovations to the CAC. And it's important to note that this facility has almost been open 20 years. And so we're at a point where we're having to do some major replacements, renovations in this particular area. That covers that, but also provides expansions for the expanded fitness area, basketball/multi-sports gym, concessions, indoor playground, and additional group exercise rooms. And as you look at this rendering out here, if you're familiar with the CAC, if you look on the far left-hand side of the rendering and the far right-hand side of the rendering, you will see where a lot of the new space will be added, with the left side being new gym space, and on the far right-hand side is where that indoor leisure pool setup is going to be located. Here you see a rendering from the rear of the building, and now you're looking north. On the previous slide, you were looking south, and you can again look on that far left-hand side and see where that aquatic expansion is going to take place. And then on the right-hand side, you can see where that gym and athletic space expansion is going to take place. I will also point to the center of the screen. That's where you see some additional renovation and expansion, primarily with an outdoor concession area. And then you'll see a second floor outdoor fitness area that's located out there too. I will note that you will see kind of in that 2D rendering, that's our outdoor aquatic space. That's not contemplated as part of this bond initiative. Now, looking inside, it gives you a better glimpse of what all's being done. I'll start on your left-hand side. You'll see where you have a leisure pool that's going to be added. And when you say leisure, it's elements like a lazy river, kind of a spot where you can just sit, some slides and some other play amenities. Right now, our indoor aquatic is primarily served by the traditional square box in the ground that we use for aquatic fitness, as well as competitions, swim competitions and the like. As we make our way to the right, you will see expansions of our men and women's locker room, also a universal changing area for the aquatic space. The biggest change is going to be where our gyms are located is where we're expanding our fitness floor. And you can see our first floor fitness space that has additional fitness equipment out there, free weight equipment, Smith machines, things of that nature, and expansion of our studio space just to the bottom of that location. And then on the far right hand side, you can see where we redo gymnasium space out there. And you'll also see a fourth space where you see a indoor turf field, and that's used for a hybrid of soccer called futsal, which is gaining popularity. So during the winter months, people can get in and do, play soccer, for lack of a better term, and with futsal. And it's an amenity that you're seeing in a lot of modern recreation facilities, and gets a high level of use there. And on this final slide, you can see a breakdown of the square footage, but it also shows you the second floor space that's being used. So if you center to the center of the rendering there, you'll see the second floor fitness space. And you can see that's where a lot of your cardio equipment is going to be located, your treadmills, your ellipticals, things of that nature. In addition, you'll see the shaded second story rooftop fitness area. And that's the space for your functional training as well as CrossFit type training to create that element out there. And so that's another unique fixture. And again, it'd be remiss if I didn't point out that at the front of the entrance, that's where the indoor playground is going to be placed. And it will be used by young children to have playground access during inclement weather. And so I want to point to the left side, and it gives you a breakdown of the renovated areas. I think this is an important thing to note, and you get a sense of what we currently have at roughly over 60,000 square feet and what we're adding with the indoor recreation facilities as well as the indoor aquatic facilities. So in essence, this expansion almost doubles the size of the CAC. So on slide number 23, we show some grant funding opportunities, and it's important to note that in addition to the debt that we're looking to issue, we're wanting to take that debt and be able to leverage it and match it to some grant opportunities that are out there. And you see on this slide that Texas Parks and Wildlife, you have the opportunity to get 50-50 matches up to $750,000 and an additional $300,000 at an 80-20 match for our trails. From the North Central Texas Council of Governments, you see that there's some transportation alternatives. So this is going to be geared towards our trails, that we have the opportunity to go out and seek $3 to $10 million with an 80-20 match. And on the bottom, you see with TxDOT, you have some alternative transportation opportunities out there that allows us to leverage millions of dollars at an 80-20 match. So it's important to note that we're also trying to leverage grant dollars that are available out there too. So next, moving to Proposition B, we have $30 million for street improvements. So as we get to slide 25, we wanted to provide a visual representation of our roadway network and the lane mounts that were added over several decades. And on your far left, you see in 1990 and earlier that the town had about 220 lane miles at that particular time. And it's important to note, earlier in the presentation, I referenced that the useful life of a road is around 30 years. So we're hitting the end of the useful life of that infrastructure that was placed prior to 1990 and around that time. In the middle, and this is the big one, is that over that 10-year period between 1990 and 2000, we added 300 lane miles. So we more than doubled our lane miles in that 10-year period. And these are the roads that are coming to the end of their useful life. As you go to your far right, you'll see the lane miles that were added in the early 2000, and that's an additional 119 lane miles that were added. Some of these may be at the end of their useful life, but many of these roads might be at a point where we can extend the useful life of those particular roads. And I'll get into that in the next slide. So what this chart demonstrates is the useful life of a road. The best way to interpret this is that if we put in a road and do nothing, that curve is going to drop and fall and end around that 30-year mark. What we're looking to demonstrate in this particular slide is that with more maintenance activity, we can extend the life of that road. So the better way to look at it is that on the left side of this exhibit, you will see what our maintenance activities can do to extend that life of the road. The areas on the right represent that time where it's just time to reconstruct, and those are what the bond dollars are going to be used, is for reconstructing those roads. But more importantly, part of this broader strategy that John touched on a little bit earlier is that Using debt to reconstruct, it frees up those sales tax dollars and general fund dollars for more maintenance activities. So what we want to do is take that steep drop off you see there at that in the middle and extend it out further. And so with more maintenance activities and using those dollars for maintenance, we can extend the life of that road past 25, 30 years to even further down the line, saving dollars there. And so the strategy here is to use debt for reconstruction, those roads that we cannot extend the life on, and free up the rest of our operating dollars for rehabilitation, whether it's minor or major, to extend the life of roads. So we're strategically using debt to take care of what needs to be reconstructed and freeing up dollars to extend the life of our roads. So on slide number 27, we provide another visual aid to show the conditions of our roads. On the bottom left-hand side, you can see the color coding of our road system and where they rate from excellent to very good, all the way down to very poor. And you can get a sense that, one, it's a good snapshot to showing that our road system is in pretty good shape. But we want to make sure that we keep as much as our road inventory as it gets older in that very good to excellent range. I'll point you to the right-hand side of the screen, and it shows you the intervention that takes place based on that PCI score, or pavement condition index. So anything below 40 is a reconstruction. And so if you go and you take a look at that yellow, orange, and red, you get a good sense of what we're going to use these bond dollars to work on across the town. When you get into that 40 to 60 range on the score, that's where you're going to do some pretty substantial work. You're going to do moderate panel replacement. And the majority of our road system in Flower Mound is cement. And so panel replacement is when you see a crew come out and they cut out a section and replace it with new cement. And the mill and the overlay is what's going to apply to our asphalt roads that are primarily in our cross timbers area. So that's an extensive amount of work. Some of it can bleed over into these capital projects. Some of it on the higher end, our maintenance work. The 60 and the 70 is where that sweet spot is, if you will, of where we want to do slight panel replacement, slab jacking, and leveling, where we just have a section of road that's structurally sound that might be seeking, and then overlay on our asphalt roads. This is where we're getting into those maintenance activities that I talked about previously on those slides. That range from 70 to 85 is where we're going to do, and the intensity of the work lowers as we go higher on this pavement index condition. And the key is that in that 70 to 85 range, if we can do these little maintenance activities that can extend the life of that road, that prevents us from having to use reconstruction dollars further down the line. We can extend the life of that road from 30 years to 40 or 50 years with those maintenance activities. So if you look at that PCI on your right, our focus is really trying to spend the debt dollars on that 40 and that 40 to 50 range on our pavement condition index, but place a lot of our maintenance activities, our sales tax dollars, and our operating funds to address in that 60 to 70 range, to get it up to 70 and 85, and that 70 and 85 range, trying to get it up to that 8,500 range. Again, extending the life of our roads. And then on slide number 28, we just want to focus again, and this is just another visualization of what I just shared on the previous slide, is that where we want to put our energy and efforts in there. And again, we're looking at that marginal poor to very poor is what we want to attack with the debt from the bond program, and use those operating dollars to focus on getting that fair up to good, the good up to very good. And sometimes the excellent is just when you do a fresh street and it has nowhere to go but down, but just trying to keep as more and more of our road inventory in that good to excellent range as possible. And then if you look on your right-hand side, you see that same overlay from the previous slide, but it gives you a sense of where that 5-year focus is going to be in those red circles, and then that 10-year reconstruction focus on a broader sense in those blue circles. So now we're going to get to the key sections. We have just the facts on here, and the running joke that I like to add is that, not to date myself, there was an old show called Dragnet, and I watched it on Nick at Night. I wasn't alive when it was on in the 50s and 60s. But there's a character on there named Joe Friday, and his catchphrase, paraphrasing it, was "just the facts, ma'am." And that's what this presentation is about. We're not here to advocate, tell you how to vote. We want to provide you with factual information. And this is a transition where I'm going to hand it over to John, and he's going to walk you through some factual components and some key questions that comes up in regards to folks when they hear we're doing a bond program. So I'll turn it over to you, John.
Sure. Some of the biggest questions are going to focus on finance because the biggest questions that come to mind is, how are we going to pay for this? So the first question is, will the passage of these propositions increase the town's tax rates? The short answer is no. The town does not anticipate the town's current tax rate will increase because of the passage of either of these propositions. While the ballot language mentions the imposition of a tax, the town's current tax rate is sufficient, meaning the capacity to fund these projects is available without raising the total tax rate. So how? How is a big question here. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to fund these things without increasing the tax rate? So we're going to take a balanced approach. So as the maintenance and operation property tax rate growth is capped at 3.5%, it's actually going to push down our maintenance and operation rate as values increase. And so as that M&O rate, it slowly decreases over time, we're going to backfill that with the INS rates. But the INS rate will increase no more than the maintenance and operation rate decreases, as that's not increasing the total tax rate as a result of the passage of this bond. This chart shows our debt capacity. We are proposing a $112 million bond program. And this shows you what $200 million over the next 10 years looks like. This is usually showing that we can fund all of these capital projects and more over the next couple of years without raising the total tax rate. So if you actually look at the purple colors, those are the debt that we're actually planning on taking on in this bond program. All of those blues are additional capacity that are generated in future years that we could take on for other projects as they come available. So we are well within the means of our current tax rate and capacity to actually fund all of these projects. So if approved, when will these projects begin? 5 years. Here's the election is for a proposed 5-year bond program. If voters approve both or one of the proposition, it is anticipated that those projects would be started within the next 5 years. The schedule will be based on prioritization, workflow, and economic conditions. So how will the town account for future inflation? Each of these projects has contingencies built into the price estimates. This accounts for things like inflation and potential change orders. While this method anticipates most of the costs for inflators, if there is a budget overage, it would be brought forward to town council and a funding method would be identified to cover these costs. So what happens if one or both of these propositions are not approved by voters? The rejected proposition would be deferred until other funding sources could be identified, which could result in some of the projects not happening for many years, if at all. It also could mean that some projects would move forward, but with a reduced scope. For example, the project could pivot to focus on repairs to neighborhood streets instead of a full-scale street reconstruction.
So that concludes our presentation. Obviously, since this is a recording, you don't have the ability to ask us any questions in real time, but there is good news. If you do have questions about anything that was presented to you on this recording, you do have the ability to engage the town to have any questions that you have answered. The town has set up a dedicated web page at flowermound.gov/bond 2025. There you can find a lot of the same information, more in-depth FAQ if you because we've been receiving questions and we've put together an FAQ and you can access information there. But more importantly, if you do have a question that you can't find the answer to, you can contact us at bond2025@flowermound.gov. And that goes to staff. And when you send us those questions, we will provide a prompt response to you on whatever question that you do ask. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to this presentation and watching it. And again, we want you to be fully equipped when you go to the ballot box to make an informed decision one way or the other. We thank you for your time.